No, we are not afraid to die. This is the story going on. And by the time we have studied the first and the second part of the story, we are moving towards the final part. Here we have seen that the writer or the narrator with his family is on the way to round the world voyage via sea route, and they are caught by the storm in the Indian Ocean. Now they are trying hard to save the lives and their vessel. Will they be able to get out of that danger, or the whole family with vessel and with crewmen will perish in the sea? We will find. By morning on January 3, the pumps had the water level sufficient under control for us to take 2 hours rest in a rotation. So they were using pump to throw the water back to the sea. So it was January 3, and by that time the water was under control. Means the amount of water coming in the sea was equal to the amount that was being pumped out back to the sea. But we still had a tremendous leak somewhere below the water line. Water line means the specific point on the ship which touches water all the time when it moves. Means first point of the ship which touches the sea. But we still had a tremendous leak somewhere below the water line. And on checking, I found that nearly all the boat's main rib frame was smashed down to the keel. Sorry. So when he checked that water is coming inside from some bottom line, he find that all the rib frames, means the support frames of the ship was smashed, means broken down to the main keel of the ship. We have already known the keel, the point in the picture. You can see, you can refer the picture. So everything, all the ribs means the supporting angles and railings of the ship. उसका स्ट्रक्चर बनाने के लिए जो रिब केस टाइप का बना है वो टूट के वापस कील पे स्मैश डाउन हो गया. In fact, there was nothing holding up a whole section of the starboard hull except a few covered partitions. So that part of the sideboard, there is a sideboard on both the side of the ship. So that part of the sideboard was not upheld, was not firmly held by any rib. Instead, there were cupboards on the wall of that starboard. Starboard की wall पे cupboards हैं. वो cupboard से उनको क्या किया है, uphold किया हुआ है. किसको? Starboard को, जो मेन उसका upper part है, जो ऊपर vertically ऊपर को जो बना हुआ है. So we are very fragile, very weak because no support of any rib. We had survived for 15 hours since the wave hit, but wave walker wouldn't hold together long enough for us to reach us Australia. So it was 15 hours since we were hit by that deadly storm. A wave walker is the name of their boat, and it was very weak now, and the writers suspected that whether this wave walker will be taking them to the Australia successfully or not, because it was badly broken by the ship. Wouldn't hold together long enough for the reach to Australia. I checked our charts and calculated that there were 2 small islands a few hundred kilometers to the east. So when the writer as a captain checked the charts means he find out the places in the sea where he could find the land, because their ship was no more fit for the sailing. So checked the chart, calculated, calculation की, और उसको मिला 2 small island a few hundred kilometers of the east. So he calculated that if they could sail, they could tow the ship towards the east for 100 or 2 kilometer, for a few hundred kilometer, they can find a small piece of land, island, he's saying there. One of them, Amsterdam, was a French scientific base, and one of that land, or one of that island, what he found in the map was Amsterdam. It was a French, means France country's scientific base. Our only hope was to reach these pinpricks in the vast ocean. So the only hope of survival was to reach to these pinpricks. Pinpricks means as small as the dot created by a pointed pin. By pricking of a pin, you get a dot. So the size of that dot was equal to these islands in the vast ocean. Means the vast ocean was like a huge big paper, and the uh, Al Amsterdam Island was like pinpricks, like a जैसे हम कहीं पे डॉट कर देते हैं अपने कंपास से टच करते हैं तो द साइज ऑफ दैट डॉट द साइज ऑफ दैट prick is equal to the size of means he mean to say that the in the vast ocean those islands were very small, but unless the wind and sea abated so we could hoist sail, our chances would be slim indeed. The great wave had put our auxiliary engine out of action. But unless the wind and sea abated, stopped to oppose us, only then we could hoist sail, means we could begin our sail, our journey. Our chances would be slim indeed, and there were a very slim chance of such happenings like the wind will stop, the sea will be silent, and then they will again move towards that direction where the pinpricks means those small islands were situated in the sea. The great wave had put our auxiliary engine out of action. The extra engine was already out of order. They were doing with a single engine. On January 4, after 36 hours of continuous pumping, we reached the last few centimeters of water. So it was January 4th, 36-hour continuous pumping. There was a few centimeter water left on the deck. Now we had only to keep pace with the water still coming in. अब सिर्फ करना ये था, the amount of water coming inside the ship was to be deflected outside the ship. We could not set any sail on the mainmast. Pressure on the rigging would simply pull the damaged section of the pressure on the rigging would simply pull the damaged section of the hull apart. So we hoisted the storm jib and headed for where I thought was two islands were. So because of the very damaged condition, devastated condition of the ship, they couldn't sail a normal, means that on the mainmast with the full speed. Because if there is a pressure of wind, then there will be chances rigging would pressure on the rigging by the hitting of the wind, and the water would simply pull the damaged section और damaged section को अपनी ओर खींच देता और pressure pull कर देता and hull apart, and it will divide into two parts. So we hoisted the storm jib, तो हमने उसको down किया, storm jib के size का बनाया and headed for where I thought the two islands were, and our ship wave worker anyhow started moving towards the direction I thought the L Amsterdam should be. Mary found some corned beef and cracker biscuits, कुछ ऐसा मिल गया खाने के लिए, and then they ate the first meal in almost 2 days. After 2 days they had at least something to eat in the form of biscuit and corned beef. But our respite was short-lived. Respite means relief. जो relief मिला था वो बहुत छोटे टाइम के लिए था. At 4 p.m. black clouds began building up behind us. फिर 4 बजे जैसी हुई, black clouds were started there coming into the shape behind the ship. Within the hour, the wind was back to 40 knots and the sea were getting higher. 40 knots की स्पीड से फिर से विंड ब्लो होने लगी. Sea rose higher and higher. The weather continued to deteriorate. Deteriorate means getting worse and worse. Weather और भी worse और भी bad होने लगा. खराब और खराब होने लगा. Deterioration throughout the night, and by dawn on January 5 our situation was again desperate. और January 5 की सुबह तक हमारी situation फिर से desperate होगी, very critical होगी. When I went in to comfort the children, John asked, "Daddy, are we going to die?" I tried to assure him that we could make it. बच्चों को assure करने गया. The youngest one in the team was my son John. He asked, "Daddy, are we going to die?" हम मर जाएंगे. I tried to convince him. मैंने उसे assure किया, convince किया कि anyhow we will overcome it. But Daddy, he went on. उसने कहा, "We aren't afraid to die if we can all be together." You and Mummy Sue and I. If we all the four are together, so there is no fear of death. I could find no words with which to respond, but I left the children's cabin, determined to fight the sea with everything I had. So the word spoken by that young child deeply touched the writer, and he couldn't say anything. He came out of the cabin determined, means he took a determination means firm decision लिया उसने क्या लिया firm decision to fight the sea with everything I had, that I will fight with the sea to save the lives of my family. To protect the weakened starboard side, I decided to heave to with the undamaged port hull facing the oncoming waves, using an improvised sea anchor of heavy nylon rope and two 22-liter plastic barrels of paraffin. जो वीकेंड पार्ट था स्टार्ट बोर्ड का, जिसके सारी रिप्स टूट गई थी और जो सिर पर टिका था किस पे, कबर्ड्स पे, उस डैमेज्ड पार्ट को स्ट्रेंथ देने के लिए क्या डिसाइड किया उसने, टू हीव टू मेक ए पाइल ऑफ अनडैमेज्ड पोर्ट हल फेसिंग द ऑनकमिंग वेव्स यूजिंग एन इम्प्रोवाइज्ड सी एंकर, जो उसका इम्प्रोवाइज्ड एक मजबूत improvised means something having a new technique, means when you do something new out of the box thinking, when you think something that is not used previously, पहले ना किसी ने किया, उस तरह की कोई नई तकनीक जुगाड़ लेके आते हैं, उसे इम्प्रोवाइज्ड कहते हैं. इम्प्रोवाइज सी एंकर ऑफ हैवी नाइलॉन रोप, नाइलॉन के रोप का जो एक एंकर था, सी एंकर माने जिससे वी वेरी वेट ऑन विच द शिप स्टॉप्स, उसको लगाया. उसी साइड को फिर 22 लीटर के प्लास्टिक बैरल पैराफिन के थे वो भी रखे, so to give strength to that side of starboard. That evening Mary and I sat together holding hands as the motion of the ship brought more and more water in through the broken planks. We both felt the end was very near. उस शाम को मैरी और मैं दोनों we were sitting together holding each other's hand as the motion of the ship का हर मोशन वाटर को अंदर ला रहा था उस ब्रोकन प्लैंक से, ब्रोकन पार्ट्स ऑफ द शिप. We both felt the end was very near, and we have thought, we had considered, we have accepted that very soon the ship will sink and we will die. But wave walker rode out. लेकिन wave walker जो उनका शिप है, it rode out of the storm, and by the morning January 6 with the wind easing, I tried to get a reading on the sextant back the chart room. I worked on wind speeds, changes of course, drift and the current in an effort to calculate our positions. Wave walker has enough strength. It moved ahead without sinking. January 6 को wind फिर ease होगी. I tried to get reading on the sextant. Sextant is a instrument on which you find out the place, situation and the direction in a ship. Back in the chart room, I worked wind speeds. Wind की speeds को check किया. It had changes, of course, वो भी change हो गई थी. Drift and current in an effort to calculate our position. The best I could determine was that we were somewhere in 150,000 kilometers of ocean looking for a 65-kilometer wide island. So I could find out our location. We were in a sea that was spread over 150,000 kilometers, means 150,000 kilometers ओशन के रेंज में हम थे. और वहाँ कहीं हमें 65 किलोमीटर के जो पिन प्रिक्स थे वो हमें ढूंढने थे. We have to find out those islands. While I was thinking, Sue moving painfully joined me. The left side of her head was now very swollen and her beckoned eyes were narrowed to the slits. She gave me a card and she had made. उसका जो पेनफुली मेरे को ज्वाइन किया, उसका हेड स्वलन हो गया था, आइज ब्लैक हो गई थी और स्लिट सी उसकी आंखें, मीन्स स्वलन आइज के अंदर नैरो गैपिंग थी जिनसे वो देख रही थी. She gave me a card. She made that card for herself. So on the front she had drawn a caricature of Mary and me with the words, "Here are some funny people. Did they make you laugh?" I laughed a lot as well. Inside was a message, "Oh, how love you both." So This card is to say thank you and let's hope for the best. Somehow we had to make it. फ्रंट साइड में ड्रोन थी कैरिकेचर्स मीन्स द फनी पिक्चर्स लाइक कार्टून्स मैरी एंड मी अपने मम्मी पापा की उसने क्या बनाए कैरिकेचर्स बनाए हैं हियर आर सम फनी पीपल ऐसा लिखा है डिड दे मेक यू लाफ आई लाफ्ड अ लॉट एज वेल मुझे इन्हें देख के हंसी आती जस्ट टू मेक एंटरटेनमेंट इन सच सिचुएशन सी हैज एन सच इंटेंशन इनसाइड वाज अ मैसेज लिखा था अंदर क्या मैसेज था हाउ आई लव यू बोथ so this is card to say thank you and let's hope for the best. Somehow we had to make it. किसी तरह हमें इससे ओवरकम करना है ऐसा मैसेज अंदर था. I checked and rechecked my calculation. We had lost our main compass and I was using a spare which had not been corrected for magnetic variation. मैंने चेक रीचेक कैलकुलेशन की सो दैट वी कुड गो ऑन द राइट डायरेक्शन. कंपास जो मेन था इट वाज ऑलरेडी आउट ऑफ ऑर्डर. जो स्पेयर था उसको मैंने मैग्नेटिक वेरिएशन के साथ किसी तरह एडजस्ट करके उसकी कैलकुलेशन फाइंड आउट की. आई मेड एन अलाउंस फॉर दिस एंड अनदर estimate of the influence of the westerly currents which flow through this part of the Indian Ocean. और जो westerly currents means westerly winds वहाँ बहती हैं उनको भी मैंने उसमें फिगर अप उसी में एडअप किया कि कैलकुलेशन में आई ऑल्सो केप्ट दैट थिंग इन माई माइंड कि जो वेस्टर्ली विंड है वो भी डायरेक्शन को बताएंगी. कंपास अगर गलत बताता है देन आई कैन ऑल्सो रिलाई ऑन वेस्टर्ली करंट्स. सो विद द हेल्प ऑफ ऑल दिस I made my calculation. About 2 p.m. I went on deck and asked Larry to steer a course of 185 degree. If you were lucky, I told him with a conviction I did not feel. He could expect to see island at 5 p.m. तो मैंने ऊपर जाके लैरी को कहा स्टीयर मीन्स मूव द कोर्स ऑफ व्हील. जो व्हील है स्टीयरिंग व्हील है उसको 185 डिग्री पे टर्न करो. और अगर हम लकी रहे विद अ कन्विक्शन मीन्स फर्म बिलीव मुझे महसूस तो नहीं हो रहा था बट विथ फर्म बिलीव आई टोल्ड हिम दैट बाय 5 p.m. टुडे शाम को 5 बजे तक हम कहाँ होंगे ऑन दैट आइलैंड. Then with a heavy heart I went below, climbed on my bunk and amazingly dozed off. Dozed off means slept away. When I woke at 6 p.m. and growing dark, 6 p.m. पे अंधेरा होने लगा था. I knew we must have missed the island uh, and with the sail we had left we couldn't hope to beat back into the westerly winds. मुझे पता था we have lost the way और such a damaged ship cannot face the westerly winds, so there was no chance left. At that moment, a toddler had appeared by my bunk. Can I have a hug? Jonathan asked. Sue was right behind him. Sue और Jonathan थे. And tousled head. Tousled means to touzle. We have already used this term. Something that has come out. Tousled, bummed head. ऊपर को चला एक सर. बंक के मैंने देखा. And Jonathan said, I want to hug you. So मैंने पूछा why I am getting hug now? Because you are the best daddy in the whole world and the best captain, my son replied. Not today, John, I am afraid. कहा कि जॉन आज मैं सबसे बेस्ट कैप्टन नहीं हूँ. Why you must be, said Sue in a matter of fact voice. You found the island. You are the best captain, Sue said, because you have found that island. Means finally they have reached Amsterdam. What? I shouted. It's out there in front of us. They chorus together as big as battles. देखो सामने battleship के बराबर island है. I rushed on deck and gazed with relief at that stark outline. Stark means complete outline of the Amsterdam. It was only a bleak means very dim piece of volcanic rock, dark piece of volcanic rock with a little vegetation means बहुत कम उसमें plants, herbs and shrubs हैं. The most beautiful island in the world because it was desperately needed to them. We anchored offshore for the night and the next morning 28 inhabitants means people living in that island. जो 28 inhabitants थे people living in that island cheered us means welcomed us, help us ashore और help करके हमें उन्होंने ship से बाहर निकाला. With land under my feet again my thoughts were full of Larry and Herbie. जब मेरी ज़मीन पैर के नीचे फील की my thought means I was fully emotional for Larry and Herbie. Larry and Herbie the crewmen cheerful and optimistic under the direst stress. They were in stress but they remained cheerful, they remained optimistic means with positive attitude. Optimistic means someone who has a positive thinking. And of Mary who stayed at the wheel for all those official hours, crucial hours. Mary wife जो crucial hour जब danger में था ship, she was holding the steering. Most of all, I thought of a 7-year-old girl who did not want us to worry about a head injury, which subsequently took 6-minute operation to remove a recurring blood clot between skin and skull. एक 6 साल की 7-year-old girl जो हमें bother worry नहीं करना चाहती थी. She didn't tell much about her head injury, so brave she was. Subsequently बाद में जिसके 6 छोटे ऑपरेशन हुए टू रिकरिंग ब्लड क्लॉट, उसके ब्लड क्लॉट खून जम जाता है तो उसे ब्लड क्लॉटिंग कहते हैं. बिटवीन स्किन एंड स्कल, उसके सर के स्कल और स्किन के बीच में जो ब्लड क्लॉट हो गया था उसको क्लीन करने के लिए 6 ऑपरेशन करने पड़े थे. इट वॉज सच ए बैडली इंजर्ड एंड a 6-year-old boy who was not afraid to die. So this was the teamwork that we could finally reach to Amsterdam, and it was final the victory of their courage and their struggle. So this is the end of the story. Now you will do the question and answer of this exercise. You can take a screenshot of this question if you don't have book, and if you have book you can copy the question from the book and then write the answer. All these things, if you have any doubt you can ask me in the group. So that's all for now. Thank you.